related matter, nearly every day I've come to the floor to talk about the key pieces of legislation that we'll only be able to complete with bipartisan cooperation. Really essential things, like funding for the entirety of our federal government, something we have to do, including for our men and women in uniform, the money for the tools and the training and the weapons that our volunteer service members need to complete their missions. Things like the National Defense Authorization Act, which Congress has passed every single year, always on a bipartisan basis, for the last 58 years. This is literally the bill that reauthorizes the U.S. military. It could not be more basic or fundamental. So it's dismaying that my Democratic colleagues have seen fit to hold these basic duties hostage for the sake of picking fights with the White House, for advancing a partisan domestic agenda. It's disappointing that Speaker Pelosi and the Democratic leader have abandoned their own written promises that they would not make our bipartisan appropriations process conditioned on poison pills, policy riders, or changes to presidential transfer authorities. All those commitments were made in the summer. Even though they put that in writing, they've chosen to shoehorn partisan demands right back into the process. So we're stalled. We're stalled because the agreement that we all reached in the summer has not been honored by the other side. But today, Mr. President, I want to keep this really simple. The Senate's dispensation on that Hong Kong legislation proves that we can still work together when our core principles and our national interests are at stake. Of course, those things are exactly what's at stake with defense funding and the NDAA. So look, it's way past time. We're in December, way past time to get serious. Chairman Shelby and Chairwoman Lowy have agreed on subcommittee allocations. Chairman Inhofe and Senator Reid made strides on our bipartisan NDAA. I would implore my Democratic friends, please stop gambling our national security on the roulette wheel of domestic politics. Please stop that. Stop putting political theater ahead of our troops. We all know this is a heated political moment, but domestic politics do not excuse our men and women in uniform from doing their duties, so they cannot excuse our Democratic colleagues from doing theirs. Our service members need Congress to have their backs. We can only fund the government if it's bipartisan. We can only pass an NDAA if it's bipartisan. The roadmaps are in hand. We have the same traditions that have yielded 58 bipartisan NDAAs in a row. We have the bipartisan agreement that everyone signed just a few months ago when Speaker Pelosi and the Democratic leader promised in writing, they wouldn't throw partisan wrenches into appropriations. Our country can't afford for Democrats to obsess over impeachment and obstruct everything else. So look, let's use these roadmaps. Let's get these things accomplished for the American people.